Welcome to Seven Trumpets Prepper, and in this video today, guys, I want to share with you something that's been on my mind since I'd done that video with my friend Kevin O'Brien that's a realtor. Me and him got to talking that day after we filmed that video. If you want to see the one I'm talking about in particular right there, we got to talking about the fact that, you know, if you don't start now, returning to the old paths, there's no going back later. And what I mean by that is prepping wise, I'll get to that. And I also want to talk about a spiritual perspective that I got thinking about even beyond what we were talking about. I'll cover the prepping aspect of that. What I mean first is that if you don't put your hand tools and you don't put back things that you can power later, this stuff here is going to fail you if you don't do something about it. Obviously, I mean, this thing needs a wood gasifier piped in, and as you can see, we've got her stripped down. It's a work in progress, but there's going to come a time that if a person hasn't done their due diligence to put back at least some hand tools, you know, gardening tools, things to get back to the old paths, you're not going to be able to do it. And the reason being is, as me and Kevin was talking about, if you think about back in the 1600s, the 1700s, 1800s, even up into the early 1900s, there was always hand tools. There was always heck, you could hook a horse up to something, plow a field, and which the Amish do that to this day, or Amish, however you want to pronounce it. But the point is those people, just like the Amish, and people in the prior generations, our ancestors, always had a means for getting something done. There was always an old way of doing it, the old paths. And then everything got mechanical. And then everything got technological. Now everything's like this, well, I don't even have it on me at the minute. That's a good thing, my cell phone. You know, it's gotten so high-tech and fancy that all these other things are cast off. And for a prepper, that is not the answer, is to cast those things off. They should be salvaged. You know, this stuff like this right here that's mechanical, make it work while you can. Later down the road, hey, it's got to go. All right, there's no going back to this stuff. All right, the only thing you can go back to is the old paths if you put it back, because you can't go get a horse after, you know, bad times come. You can't go get an old plow at you know, some antique place and fix it back up. Then you can't go back to doing all these things. Then it needs to be started now, and it's just so imperative because me and Kevin really got to talking about it, breaking it down, and if you think about it, most people on average don't even have garden tools, don't even have the slightest idea how to even begin a garden. Just the most basic necessities to begin homesteading, because now I'm speaking for a moment from the heart, from homesteading, from being a farmer all my life before I became a prepper in 2009. I'm talking literally, this is from the heart, people. Is that all these things all my life I took for granted because we always had both means. My grandfather had Belgian draft horses, some of the finest in the land. You know, to see him hook to them, pull, plow, or do whatever, it wasn't no surprise. Yeah, it's Papa doing his thing. Nowadays, I'm like, oh my gosh. You know, I'm like, if we had to go back to that, could somebody do it? And, you know, me and Dad's been working on the farm and everything, and the old plows and stuff, we were recovering some of them here recently, and I was just thinking, you know, we do have the best of both worlds, and I ain't saying that to brag, but when you have both perspectives to look at, it makes you consider very quickly in your heart, how will I keep that going, you know, later down the road, post-collapse, whether it's Seven Trumpets Revelation, economic collapse, whatever, because just like I'm looking out there right now at one of the tractors, you know, even though we could roll the thing off the hill, get it going if we had to, that still, you need fuel for it at some conjuncture. There's just so many factors to take in whenever you go to looking at that, as opposed to how the people of the old days done, is you had a hoe, and you had a meal in your stomach from that morning, and you went out to the field and you got it done. And that's exactly how it's going to have to get back to. And I think that that's the endurance aspect is going to get a lot of people. I think even if they do have the tooling, the fact that they don't never put it to application, it's going to be what breaks them. You know, it's the little stuff that gets you. And so I'd encourage you to definitely get those things now. I want to read you something from the scripture, and I was thinking about this because this covers so many people. Seriously, it really does. It says in Jeremiah, in Yirmiyahu chapter 6, verse 16, says, "Thus said Yahweh." So this is not one of the prophet's thoughts. This is not some man's thoughts. This is the Most High instruction. "Thus said Yahweh, stand in the ways and see, and ask for the old paths, where the good way is, and walk in it, and find rest for yourselves. But they said, we do not walk." And it gets better. "And I raised up watchmen over you. Listen to the sound of the ram's horn. But they said, we do not listen." And I want to read two more. I mean, it really hits home. "Therefore hear you nations, and know, O congregation, what is upon them. Hear, O earth," speaking to everyone. "See, I am bringing evil upon this people, even the fruit of their thoughts, because they have not listened to my words, nor my Torah, and they rejected it." And, you know, just like that people ain't made preparation for the seven trumpets of Revelation, people ain't made preparation for anything really anymore. And we are living in the lip service society generation. I think that's the best way to label it. People is so lukewarm, and even when it comes to people with prepping, they don't even really do their due diligence. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I want to encourage you today that if you don't have a means to go back to the old paths, and I mean the old paths, when I mean old paths, I'm not talking get your tractor out, I'm talking the hand method, you know, hand tools, hand work, that you really need to think on these things, because one day you're going to have to fall back on it. And my best advice is to get started today. And not only that, if you ain't gotten back to the old paths in Scripture and keeping the Master's commands, it don't matter how much we prep. If we're not doing our due diligence to honor Him, keep His commands when the time comes, you could have the best equipment, the best preps in the world, and it ain't going to save you from nothing. So until we see you again here at Seven Trumpets Prepper Channel, I hope it's a help to you, and I hope you have a most blessed day in Yahushua's name.